I shave my little bugs. This your girl, Empress Goddess, the Georgia Peach with the sweet meat. Back at you one more again, my loves. This is the hardest working girl out here in the YouTube streets. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it. Now, my loves, this is the African origin of modern humanity. The African origin of modern humanity. By, I want to make sure I get all these credits out of the way. I don't be wanting no mess. I have no copyrights to this content. Hey, Shan, this is strictly for educational purposes. This book presents all the latest evidence concerning the African origins of modern humanity. For 200,000 years, Africa was at the forefront of human progress. The author smashes all racist misuse of evolution. He also takes a detailed look at the implications of an African origin. It essentially means that the first people everywhere, let me repeat that now. Number one, it essentially means that the first people everywhere were of African appearance. Ancient Egyptian hairstyles suited to Afro hair appeared in Europe 30,000 years ago. Only those outside the tropical and subtropical regions became of non-African appearance. The first civilizations arose in the subtropics. Number three, humans of all backgrounds. Let me say it one more again for you. I'm going to speak it real loud and clear. Humans of all backgrounds have what? Neutrality and lifestyle requirements directly resulting from our African origins. This is a little known fact. This is where African history should truly start. I say, my loves.
This is Audible. The African Origin of Modern Humanity, written by Gert Muller, narrated by Mark Shumka. Forward. In this book, we are interested in telling the story of the first modern humans, also called in the technical literature anatomically modern humans, AMH, or by the Latin species name of Homo sapiens sapiens. We do, however, devote a chapter to the dominant theory regarding the ancestors of Homo sapiens sapiens and where they arose. We have avoided using terms like Negroid, Mongoloid, and Caucasoid in this book, preferring Sub-Saharan, European, and East Asian appearance. We believe, based on evidence presented in our other publications, that the present-day inhabitants of North Africa and West and South Asia to be the result of various degrees of intermingling between the three. Some abbreviations to remember, which are used in parts of or throughout the book. AMH, Anatomically Modern Humans. EUP, Early Upper Paleolithic. OOA, Out of Africa. PNAS, Proceedings for the National Academy of Sciences. KA, Kilo Year. YA, Years Ago. YO, Years Old. CC, Cubic Centimeters. Homo sapiens sapiens, Anatomically Modern Humans. Fossils, Preserved life forms or their traces from prehistoric times. Paleontologist, Specialist who studies fossils. Physical anthropologist, Specialist who studies living and prehistoric human physique. Geneticist, Specialist who studies genes, heredity, and variation of living organisms. Extant, still existing. Extinct, no longer existing. Hominin, any species that is a member of the human lineage. Chapter 1: The Theory of Evolution and Supporting Evidence. Naturalism. Everyone has an opinion on Darwin's theory of evolution, but few people actually have a succinct understanding of it. In order to agree with or critique the theory, we first have to understand it. His theory is essentially an attempt to explain the nature and diversity of life on planet Earth. It is a much grander project than simply explaining human origins. Darwin was a naturalist, and a short summary of naturalism is in order before we can understand his theory. The naturalists have classified life on Earth in the following way. All organisms that can produce fertile offspring amongst themselves are members of the same species. Some species are more similar than others through shared characteristics. The most similar species are placed in a group called a genus, plural genera. The most similar genera are placed in a subfamily, which in turn are placed in a family, an order, a class, a phylum, and a kingdom. As an example, we give the various classifications of a chimpanzee. It is in the kingdom Animalia, organisms that can move from place to place, the phylum called Chordata, having a post or prenatal tail and other features, the class Mammalia, having mammary glands and other features, the order Primates, having nails and other features, the family Hominidae, great apes, the subfamily Homininae, African great apes, the genus Pan, chimps and bonobos, and the species Pan troglodytes. A king colobus monkey shares all the classifications with a chimp up to the family stage. Its remaining classifications are family Cercopithecidae, Old World monkeys, subfamily Colobini, colobus monkeys and related genera, genus Colobus, colobus monkeys, and species Colobus polycamos, the specific species called King Colobus. Most people are unaware that there is a difference between monkeys and apes, let alone that there are different subfamilies, genera, and species of monkeys. Ignorance of naturalism is not the best place from which to critique the theory of evolution. Darwin's theory. We present Darwin's theory based on a summary by leading evolutionary biologist Ernst Mayr. He gives a series of facts, followed by an inference, as being the basis for the theory. 1. All species are fertile enough for the population to expand if all offspring survive. Fact. 2. Populations of species tend to maintain the same size despite episodic fluctuation. Fact. Only agricultural humans are an exception. 3. All species feed on another life form type, which makes every species a form of food. Fact. 4. The overall maintenance of the population size of different species, therefore, means food supply is limited for every species. Fact. Inference. A limited supply of food means there is competition for survival. 5. Members of a species vary one to the other. This is called within-species variation. Fact. 6. This variation is significantly the result of inherited characteristics. Fact. 7. Some members of a species have inherited characteristics that are better suited to their current environment. Fact. 8. Those members are more likely to survive and sexually reproduce, passing on those inherited characteristics. This is called natural selection. Fact. Inference. This leads to a species gradually becoming better adapted to their current environment. This continual process of adaptation is what we call evolution. These 8 facts and their inferences produced additional inferences for which physical evidence could be sought. Inference A: if some members of a species move to a different environment, natural selection will bring about a new variety of the species over time. Inference B: given enough time, different varieties of a single species may become different species because of the accumulated differences due to natural selection. Inference C: this strongly suggests species of the same family must have a common descent, such as Felidae, the cat family, Canidae, the dog family, Hominidae, the ape family, and Cercopithecidae, the monkey family. Inference D: humans, by their appearance, look more similar to apes than to any other organisms. Therefore, humans and apes share a common ancestor. Some people find it offensive to class humans as primates, together with great apes and old world monkeys, but let us consider some obvious facts. Human-primate similarities. 1. The skin color of primates comes in both dark and pink varieties. Does this sound familiar? 2. Some primates have broad noses, while some have narrow noses. Some have flat noses, while others have very long noses. Does this sound familiar? 3. Ear similarity amongst humans is so specific it can assist individual identification. Observe the ear of an ape and that of a human. Does the ear shape look familiar? It should be obvious that the selective highlighting of human-primate similarities can have racist uses. But as one can see from the illustrations, there is a primate to match every continental appearance. This needed to be said because the opposition of many to Darwin's theory comes not only from religion, but from fear of racist victimization. Ignoring facts is not a valid way of defending oneself from racism. It is better to acquaint yourself with the facts and use them for defense against the selective highlighting of human-primate similarities. Inference D is not the same as saying that apes, like those of today, evolved to become human. It is also not the same as saying adaptations inevitably lead to greater intelligence. Darwin said neither of these things. This answers the often asked question of why there is no evidence that apes today are evolving into humans. People may have religious or ideological reasons for rejecting Darwin's theory of evolution. While we respect that, we must nonetheless point out that rejecting inference D does not in any way negate the accuracy of the 8 facts. It also does not negate the fact that inferences A, B, and C are based on sound reasoning. If Darwin was right about inference D, then there should be evidence to support this common ancestry. What would this evidence be? To end up today with humans and apes, there must have been different intermediate species, showing the gradual change from ape-like ancestor to human. These species must have lived a very long time ago, given how long it takes to go from variety of a species to a new species. Those very ancient intermediate species would be the evidence. Is there any physical evidence for Darwin's theory? Has evidence been found to support inference D? Have very ancient intermediate species been found showing changes from ape-like to human? The fossils of a series of extinct bipedal or upright ape species have been found. The significance of an upright ape species is that in this respect, they resemble humans. The oldest of these is Ardipithecus cadaba and Ardipithecus ramidus, which lived in Ethiopia 6 to 5 million and 4.5 million years ago, YA, respectively. There is limited evidence that Ardipithecus was upright. From this species is thought to descend a group of apes called Australopithecines, for which there is substantial evidence that they were upright. These species lived between 4 and 2.5 million YA. The oldest of these is Australopithecus afarensis, which was found in Ethiopia. So-called Lucy belonged to this species. Anthropologists called her the first human, in reference to her species being the oldest known in the human lineage at the time of discovery, 1984. They did not mean that Lucy looked like modern humans. Australopithecus garhi lived 2.5 million YA in Ethiopia and is thought by some paleontologists to be the ancestor of the genus Homo, which modern humans belong to. The notable examples of Australopithecine fossils that include skulls are STS-5 and STS-71, which have cranial capacities of 485 and 428 cubic centimeters, cc, respectively. The Lucy fossil, AL288-1, is estimated to have had a capacity of 350 to 500 cc, based on reconstruction. This is similar to the cranial capacity of chimps. Most Australopithecine fossils have been found along the Great East African Rift. Homo habilis. Around 2.4 million YA, we find the first evidence of the genus Homo. The oldest representative is Homo habilis, or handy man. Habilis is thought to be the first species to make different kinds of stone tools. They were simple pebbles, worked on one side. These stone tools were called the Oldowan industry. It is possible that Australopithecus garhi was the first to make these tools. Examples of Homo habilis fossils, which included skull pieces, are KNMER 1813 and OH24, which have been reconstructed with cranial capacities of 510 cc and 600 cc respectively. This is the first species to have a cranial capacity larger than the higher range of a chimpanzee, 300 to 500 cc. Habilis is thought to have continued until about 1.5 million YA. A species referred to as Homo rudolfensis was found around Lake Turkana in Kenya, dating back to 1.9 million YA. Lake Turkana was formerly known as Lake Rudolph, hence the now anachronistic name. The present author shall refer to this species as Homo turkanensis. Skull KNMER 1470 has a smaller jaw than that of habilis and a reconstructed cranial capacity of 700 cc. Homo erectus. Between 1.9 and 1.8 million YA, Homo erectus arose in East Africa. This species is thought to have evolved from either habilis or turkanensis. Erectus used fire, which was a major advancement in the human condition. The benefits of cooked food are explained in Science magazine. Observations of living apes also offer some precedence for primates digging up roots, says Wrangham. Thus, even Australopithecus may have munched tubers. But the real revolution came once human ancestors tasted a tuber baked in a lightning-sparked grass fire and realized the value of cooking, Wrangham asserts. Heat turns hard-to-digest carbohydrates into sweet, easy-to-absorb calories. A diet of 60% cooked tubers, about the proportion used in modern native African diets, and no meat, boosts caloric intake by about 43% over that of humans who ate nuts, berries, and raw tubers, says Wrangham. A 60% meat diet offers just a 20% advantage. Did cooked tubers spur the evolution of big brains? By Elizabeth Panisi in Science, Volume 383, 5410, March 1999, pages 204 to 205. Erectus's use of fire meant calories for the brain, shorter feeding periods, and more time to think. It also meant big jaws, with which to chew hard foods were no longer necessary. Erectus could now see at night with the help of fire and frighten away predators. For the impact of fire on feeding time and other life changes, see Phylogenetic Rate Shifts in Feeding Time During the Evolution of Homo by Chris Organ et al. In PNAS, Volume 108, 35. Erectus was an efficient hunter and could use language. Erectus had almost no body hair and is thought to have developed heavily pigmented skin. This was for protection against the tropical sun after having lost their body hair. Around 1.8 million YA, Erectus left Africa to colonize the world. The oldest evidence for Erectus outside of Africa is in Georgia, at a site dated to between 1.8 and 1.6 million YA. The Georgian Erectus had smaller cranial capacities, 550 to 600 cc, and used Oldowan technology. The African Erectus developed the Acheulean industry from the Oldowan between 1.8 and 1.7 million YA. It included hand axes worked on both sides, an advancement from the Oldowan. The East African Erectus fossil KNM-ER 3733 was found in Kubi Fora, near Lake Turkana, and is 1.6 million YO. It had a cranial capacity of 850 cc, bigger than any previous hominin species, and the Georgian Erectus. The East African Erectus fossil, KNM-WT 1500, dates to 1.5 million YA, and is of an 11 or 12-year-old. It has a cranial capacity of 880 cc, despite being so young. Human brains were getting seriously bigger. The million-year-old Asian Erectus fossil Java Man had a cranial capacity of 900 cc. The Chinese Erectus fossil, known as Skull 2, had a cranial capacity of 1030 cc and is around 750,000 YO. It would appear that with time, the Erectus skulls were getting bigger. Homozambiensis. In 1907, a jawbone of a new hominin species was found in Heidelberg, Germany. It was called Homo heidelbergensis. In 1921, a complete skull of the same species was found down a mine in Kabwe, also called Broken Hill, Zambia. It was named Homo rhodesiensis because the country was then called Northern Rhodesia. Like Turkanensis, the species is still anachronistically known by this name in Western literature, but we prefer to use the name Homozambiensis. The Kabwe skull has a cranial capacity of 1,230 cc, at the lower range of modern human skull size. The species is thought to have evolved 600,000 years ago from Erectus, as evidenced by the Bodo cranium from Ethiopia, which had a cranial capacity of 1,250 cc. Language is thought to have developed further with Zambiensis. Around 400,000 years ago, Zambiensis moved into Europe and West Asia, adapting to the Ice Age climate. There, they evolved into Homo neanderthalensis. The late great Professor Cheikh Anta Diop of Senegal was one of a few Africans involved in the debates around human evolution in the 1970s. He interpreted the similarities between Zambiensis and Neanderthalensis as being two varieties of one species, with the former as the original. Hafted stone tips have been found in Kathu Pan, South Africa, associated with Zambiensis fossils. This strongly suggests they were the first to use spears. They were also the first to use pigments. The paleoanthropologist Ian Tattersall wrote of the significance of these innovations. Based on various technological and economic indicators, blade production, use of grindstones, pigment processing, hafting, it has been proposed that hints of modern human behaviors can be detected as far back as several 100,000 years ago, and that a sequential accumulation of such indicators reflects a slow, gradual attainment of modern behavior patterns over the past 300 to 500 Ka. Human Origins, Out of Africa by Ian Tattersall, in PNAS, Volume 106, 38, 2009. This species was clearly very close to modern levels of intelligence. Neanderthals must have been at least this clever, given that they were descended from Zambiensis. Zambiensis survived until about 125,000 YA. Reconstructions of Zambiensis show him to have looked quite close to modern humans, but with heavy brow ridges like erectus. Answering the question. The fossil record shows extinct species of upright apes, or apes that were becoming upright, between 6 and 4.5 million YA. By 4 million YA, the first conclusively upright apes were walking the plains of East Africa. By 2.5 million YA, they had spread to southern Africa. Around 2.4 million YA, Homo habilis came onto the East African scene, having stone tools, a larger than chimp brain, and a smaller jaw. Turkinensis had a somewhat bigger brain and smaller jaw, dating back 1.9 million YA. The earliest erectus had a somewhat bigger brain and smaller jaw than Turkinensis, dating back to around 1.6 to 1.5 million YA. In East Africa, he developed more advanced stone tools than habilis. They were the first to use fire. The later erectus, around 1